see y'all all popping in here. I see Bows in here, Donnelly, some of my favorites. Welcome. Welcome to the live, everyone. It's been a while, so I'm happy that everybody was able to stop by. Every time I go MIA for a bit and then do the lives, I gotta remember how to do everything. Let me see if I can remember. There should be a way we should see each other on the screen as far as the comments go. Van Miles, I see you. Welcome, Karen. Karen from Michigan. Welcome. So, can everybody hear me first and foremost? I just had to stop the background sound, so I'm hoping you can hear me. So today we are just going to celebrate 2 years. So I have been a full-time RV officially for 2 years now. And just a side mention, also October was also the anniversary of Fat Man leaving me. So that's another anniversary. But looking back, October has been a important month throughout my life for quite a while now. October is when I originally moved to Las Vegas, so it was my Las Vegas anniversary. I moved to Las Vegas 2009, and then of course I started RVing 2 years ago as of, was it the 14th? I can't even remember the exact date, but October is an interesting month for me. So, you know, I guess I gotta start giving October some props, some love. I usually don't think much of it. Alright, I see Daphne's in here. Welcome. And once again, thanks for stopping by. Whenever everybody takes time out of their night, out of their day to hang with me, I totally appreciate it. So thank you. Today, one thing that I wanted to do is kind of revisit something that I wanted to play around with the first time. Well, not necessarily the first time, but the last time I went live, and then everything went haywire. So I just kind of wanted to touch on some questions about my previous experience as a woofer, and then my experience overall just as a nomad, as a full-time RVer. Some of these questions I feel like I have gotten, not necessarily exactly as I'm going to phrase them, but these are questions that I've definitely have come across from a lot of the viewers, and I just wanted to actually answer them for all to see. Sometimes, you know, it's just a response in the comment, so usually whoever wrote that comment may be responding, but I think this would be interesting or fun to touch on some of this stuff. Now, questions that I get as an RVer, of course, and I've definitely touched on this before, is just why did I decide to live this life? Right now you hear B Rabbit drinking water. I swear every time he always comes in here with his thirsty throat. Let's give him his little time to shine. So if you hear that, gulp, 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 and that's B Rabbit. Go ahead and get hydrated, son. I'm happy you're hydrated. So back to Q&A. So as far as questions and answers, I also gotta make sure I get to see who's leaving questions. Of course, why did I decide to live this life? What got me out of the rat race and deciding that it was time to live as a nomad? And it was a few things. One of them, of course, since we're talking about B-Rabbit and we mentioned Fatty, was for the fur babies. I really want to travel. I wanted to travel. Having the fur babies made it difficult for me because I didn't like leaving them, and I didn't necessarily have the money or the resources to bring them with me if I was going to travel. You know, trying to travel, at some point, keep in mind I had 3 fur babies. I had 2 cats, 2 dogs. Bringing them with me if I wanted to fly out somewhere was basically, I don't know if it was impossible. It just seemed like it would have been an impossibility. I just can't imagine them being like, yes, you can bring 4 fur babies with you on this flight. I know that they allow you to buy tickets for some of the airlines. I just feel like there would have been a limit to how many. Then of course there would be times where I would leave the cats home and they would be totally fine with being left at home, and I would bring the dogs with me, and the dogs would be so uncomfortable. Like, I would be so excited to bring them with me somewhere, but they were in a new environment, so they were uncomfortable. And then if I wanted to leave during that time that I was going out of, let's say, the Airbnb or the hotel, mainly Airbnb, let's just be honest, I'm usually an Airbnb girl because I prefer that over hotels, and that's because I worked in the hotel industry, but carrying on. Leaving them in whatever little apartment condo we were in, and then knowing that they were uncomfortable, I didn't like that. So being in an RV to me was one way around that, because obviously if I go somewhere, they can come with me. And then another thing, if I go somewhere, home is coming with us. So when we go from location to location, inside, home is always the same for them. And then once we open the door, then they can realize, like, oh, the outside environment is different, but they're still very much comfortable once we come inside. So that was one thing that I really wanted to experience, traveling with my fur babies and keeping them safe, and also, well, more or less keeping them comfortable when we traveled. And of course, now that I travel, I feel like me wanting to travel with them was more of a me thing. A lot of times I'm like, oh, they're gonna love this, and they looking at me like, let's go back to the house. I'm just like, great. But once again, that's because I've raised, I think, inside fur babies. They're not much of outside fur babies, so we're trying to see if we can adjust and get them a little more excited about the outside. So that's one reason why I wanted to live this life. Also, having a house. I got to experience having a house. I got to experience home ownership, and it was so fun and exciting in the beginning. And then after a while, I started to feel more like it was holding me back, if you will, or I felt stuck. I felt like if I wanted to travel, the first thing I had to think about was the house. So I always kind of felt tethered to the house. Just like when I had a lot of stuff, I also felt tethered to my stuff. So I kind of felt trapped. And now it's like, if I want to go, I can just go. Literally everything just comes with me. Wherever my persons is, that's where my personal stuff is. And that just gave me a lot more freedom, having that option to just take everything with me. So those are, of course, some of the big reasons. And then the thing that turned me on to RV living would have been back in the day, of course. I was a big fan of MTV's Road Rules. And when that came out, for some reason, I was like, I definitely need to apply. Why didn't I ever apply to Road Rules or Real World? Because I was being a punk. I was being a big punk. And I found reasons to be like, you're not gonna make it, you're not what they're looking for. I talked myself out of it year after year after year, and then I got too old to even apply, but I still wanted to live that life. And I finally got brave enough to do it, and now I'm absolutely loving it, and now we're 2 years in. So that's why I decided to go full time, and now I'm just like, can I see myself going back to a house? I mean, I guess I could, because you never say never, but at the same time, I am so excited about this lifestyle. So it has been a great change in my life that in my head, I was like, okay, we're going to plan this as it originally it was like, okay, we're definitely going to live this life for at least a year. And now I'm like, okay, now I'm thinking about the 5-year plan or the 10-year plan, or actually not necessarily a 10-year plan. I don't really think that far ahead, but I for sure would love to be able to have the 5-year anniversary live stream of me living in an RV, and I could see it being a 10-year live stream of living in an RV, or at least living as a nomad. It doesn't, may not necessarily be the RV, because believe it or not, I didn't think I would ever say this. I am now starting to think about going even smaller, and I didn't see that happening when I first got the RV. When I first got the RV, I saw a lot of people who wind up downsizing, and I was like, I can't see that happening. But now I'm realizing there's a good portion of this RV that I don't use. Like, it's me in the bedroom. That's it. And then the kitchen and the bathroom. I do like having the bathroom. That was one reason why I never did van life in the first place, because of the lack of bathroom. But like this living room area, I don't really use it much. Now, it does of course come in handy when I have visitors in the RV, because then they have a place to sleep. Going smaller means CK has been my biggest travel companion. If I go one day I feel like I'm gonna go to a van, but then I think to myself, like, how is CK gonna visit? At that point, we're just gonna have to. She needs to have a van by then too, and then it could just be a caravan, and then I won't have to worry about her having a place to actually sleep. So that's my way around that. So that's that question. Why I decided to do full-time RVing. Biggest challenge adjusting to RV life, I've touched on this before, downsizing. It is still whooping my tail. It is still hard. And it doesn't make sense that it's still hard, because I can say to you guys, having all that stuff made me feel trapped, and yet I'm still holding on to stuff that makes me feel trapped, because I'm constantly worried about, not necessarily worried, I'm not necessarily worried about the stuff that I have, but I'm definitely looking stuff around in this RV that I don't use. Because there's always like, well, one day I may want to pull out my dance pad to play Dance Dance Revolution, because that's one of the things that I have in RV storage. I have Dance Dance Revolution and the dance pad that comes with it. I probably will never play that game again, at least not while I'm in the RV, so it's something that is on the list of things that will get donated when I finally get my car together. We still working on that, y'all. Let's see what else. One of the questions, I'm just gotta make sure I'm not missing anything, because I like to have the chat on the screen, and right now that ain't happening. So I gotta go back and forth. All right, so I do see some statements were made that I missed. Let me go. We got Donnelly, thank you. Yes, I'm proud of getting over your. She's proud that I got over my fears. This is one reason why I'm doing this channel, because I feel like by getting over my fears, I opened up a lot of doors, and I'm hoping that I can inspire other people to do the same. Now, once again, I know that me getting over my fears led me to one path. That does not mean that it's going to be the same path as others, but so many people are trapped and being held back by fears, and then there are so many people who are being held back by fears who are aware of the fact that they're being held back by their fears, and then there's other people that don't realize that it's their fears that's holding them back. And if I can do anything before I leave this earth, I need more people to realize, one, fear is holding me back, two, some of the things that I've convinced myself are actually lies, and three, I gotta break free. Especially if it's someone who is just not happy in their current life, in their current situation. I just want people to be freed from that, because I feel so much better. 2 years ago, I was not the same person at all. I was not anywhere near where I am mentally. Do I still have more that needs to be, more healing, and is there more journey ahead of me to get me where I need to be or where I want to be? Absolutely. But where I was 2 years ago, completely different person. Van Miles, I see you saying you feel the same way, so I'm assuming you're trying to downsize some more as well. You're already in a van-ish. No, I gotta remember what yours looks like, because I feel like I always see you out. You're always out of your RV making moves, you and your hubby. Okay, but Van Mouse is inspired. Great. So there's some inspiration. People are inspired, but you were already doing your thing anyway outside of me. So that I'm happy that you're doing your thing and you're showing other people your path and what you're doing. So for those people who are like, Stizzy is single, she likes to be single, I'm married. Van Miles is giving you what it's like to travel as a married couple, or to be married and travel, whether you're doing your solo trip or whether it's you and hubby together. Other people can see, once again, there's so many different ways to live this life, and sometimes people need to relate to more of the storyline in order to be able to apply the lessons and the messages that YouTuber, that content creator is trying to express. So I love that other people have different stories that they're telling, and people are finding, the connections. I love seeing that. Actually, I'm talking to someone actually reached out to me on Instagram who's interested in this lifestyle, and this individual follows a lot of YouTubers, some of which I also follow, and she has opted to go beyond just the comment section, but to actually reach out to them just to get some additional questions answered, and then also probably just that extra bit of support that you need to help push yourself to the next stage. So that was nice. Like, I'm happy that I'm one of the people that she opted to reach out to. That makes me feel fantastic, by the way, to know that somebody's like, okay, I need a little bit of a push, or I need a little bit of support, or I just need a few more questions answered for me to be ready to go. Like, go. I'm ready to do it. And I was one of those people. So I'm like, oh, I feel so special. I feel so special. Okay, so RV, let's see what else. What else do we want to talk about? That's just RV life related. What's one thing that I thought I needed in the RV but actually never used? That would be the additional space. As I just mentioned, I'm realizing that at first I absolutely needed this living room area, but I barely use it. Most of the time, it's just like it is now. Like, you see the background is just another place to store stuff. But also, it's also a place when it's cleaned up and organized for travel companions to be. So I need it, but I don't. Most of the time I don't need it. There is a percentage of the time that I do need it. Now let's start talking about ranch life and woofing. That was a big part of my life recently. We had a whole 6 months that I was on the ranch. Now, for some of you that I know it doesn't seem like 6 months, but keep in mind the videos are never real time. You know, like, I've been in this new location. Like, I just announced to everybody that I'm in coastal Mississippi, but I've been in Mississippi for almost a month. But you're just getting the video. So always keep in mind that the videos aren't real time. Sometimes, you know, I may be in maybe a little funk, or most of the times I'm just excited about where I am. So I'm just living in the moment and I'm not filming and posting. So that may be one reason why the ranch seemed like such a short time, because a good amount, like, I can't even remember how many weeks went by before I really started posting videos. Like, I may have been posting shorts, but as far as like long form videos, I was there for a while before I started posting. And then also I was still tiptoeing into posting because I wanted to make sure that they were okay with me posting and filming, since it is their property, it's their business, and I wanted to respect that. So it felt short, but that was 6 amazing months. 6 months that opened my eyes to, one, how much I really love working with animals. Obviously I love the fur babies, but when it came down to it, I really enjoy animal care and helping the babies, ranch babies, the feather babies, even the snake babies, the reptile babies. You know, we're gonna get a little more comfortable working with reptiles for sure. It's just something that I have to do. But that was a great experience that I want to encourage so many other people to consider. Now, obviously, the way I did it, it was to help me continue to travel and live this lifestyle, and to keep it affordable. Not having to pay lot rent, not have to worry about your utilities, not having to worry about grocery bills. Oh my gosh, y'all, I went grocery shopping. And I know everybody was saying that grocery prices was out of this world, but it hit harder when it was my credit card. Because before I was looking at stuff, because I would go shopping while I was on the ranch and I would just grab stuff knowing that I didn't have to pay for it. But when I went grocery shopping, I almost wanted to go back to the ranch. I almost said, hey, I appreciate the 10 hours, 10 to 15 hours of volunteer work in order to stay here, but I think maybe I don't need that much time to myself, and I'd rather be doing 20, 25 hours somewhere for somebody to pay for my food, because good Lord, I ain't like that at all. So I definitely will be doing wolf again in the future. You best believe it. Because that bill was aggressive. It was rude. No. We gotta figure something out. I don't know if I need to clear up space just so I can have a baby garden in here. I don't know, because I didn't like them bills at all. Lord of mercy. But woo wee. Back to woofing. So I know some people had never heard of wolf, and now they're at least considering it. And then hopefully when they looked at the videos where I was talking about wolf, they also looked at some of the other links to see what other options are out there. But there's so many different ways that I've heard people using wolf. For example, and then I'm hoping that when I share this, you know, somebody who may not have thought to do it themselves, or may not have thought to share it with other people around them, that they may find somebody who's like, this would be perfect for them. So one of the woofers, when I first got there, was a student, and he originally was studying one field, and then after his time as a woofer, he decided to change his major to agriculture. and he was wolfing in between semesters. So some people, granted, you know, I'm 42, I'm not in school, but for those who are in school and they're in school full time, actually living on campus, living that life, a way to either learn more about themselves or learn more about their field of study, wolf is an option for them. And you can do it just during the summer semester, or do it a week or two during winter break, or I'm trying to remember the breaks, spring break, whatever they have. Okay, it's been years, but you can just do it temporarily. You don't have to do it for 6 months. You know, there's some people who just wolf locally. So they may have a ranch or a farm close to where they live, and they just go locally to do a few hours for the experience. Some people may do it for a day. Some people may do a weekend, a week. Some of the woofing locations, because of what you're learning, they may put a limit to your time. Like I've seen some where it was just like, we only want woofers who want to stay for a few days. We don't want anybody long term. And then I've seen other hosts who are like, we only want long term stays. That way we're not constantly training people. But there's so many ways to woof. And of course there's Woof USA, which is what I went through. But then they also have woof internationally. There are people who have done woofing in like Italy or France. So let's say you're like, I can afford a flight out to France, I can afford the flight back, and I can afford some additional things, but I can't necessarily afford the hotels and the food, this, that, and the third. So this could be a way to make travel an option for you. Always have money to get, in case of you find you get matched up with a farm that doesn't work for you, ranch that doesn't work for you. So always have the additional money to get the heck out of there. Don't be stuck. But it's just a way to like hold off on some of that monies, experience new things, get to travel, all clumped into one. I've also seen some people who are international travelers bring their whole family to the US, husband, wife, kids, and that's how they decided to travel throughout the United States. You know, they pick a location in Florida, and then they pick a location in North Carolina. So I've seen that happen, and this is me going through like the comments or the reviews, and also going on Reddit and looking at people's stories, just seeing how many different ways people have taken advantage of this program. So it's super fantastic, and I hope more people actually consider it, because I obviously love it. You know, I had such a great experience, and I know some people, they don't have great experiences, and I'm sorry. You know, I feel bad for those individuals, but there are a lot of options. You go somewhere you don't like, you go somewhere else. Find that spot that works perfectly for you and your goals and what you're trying to achieve. And I think a lot of people will have experiences that they'll remember for a very long time. So as far as the wolf, that was a brief little bit, but let me touch on some of the questions that I've gotten. Now, as far as like what kind of tasks did I do as a woofer, I think everybody kind of has an idea of that, because I've did at least 3 videos on that. You know, waking up, doing the feedings, watering, or making sure that water is clean and fresh. There was, of course, a dog kennel, so feeding the fur babies there, taking them out just so they had time to run around, socializing with them, cleaning up poop. There's a lot of cleaning up poop with working on a ranch. There's a lot of poop, okay? If you don't feel comfortable with poop, that's going to be weird, because I have, when I first went there, I remember watching my host dealing with one of the goats and just like touching poop with bare hands. By the end of Wolf, I was doing the same thing. I totally understood it. You know, it sounds super gross now, but you just wash your hands afterwards. Sometimes just stopping to grab some gloves is not a possibility. And there's just so much poop everywhere, you just got to get used to it, okay? That was one lesson that I learned. It was a weird lesson, but that was the one lesson that I learned. My proximity to poop changed drastically once I started woofing and working on a ranch. Some other things that we did were, you know, grocery shopping, or one time I went and had to go pick up hay, collecting eggs, feeding all the different type of birds that we had, whether it was the chickens or the ducks or the he found. Finding ways to make life a little more comfortable for some of the fur babies on the property, such as a pot-bellied pig. Once it got super hot, you know, we figured out a way for him to have like his own little area where he'd always have mud so he could take a little bath, stay cool. Of course, monitoring the kids, you know, the baby goats once they were born, making sure they were okay, administering medicine to the baby goats, or actually all the goats, once they started showing signs of sickness, just being a second eye, you know, if anything was weird or strange, immediately letting the host family know, where they can either explain to us why something was weird or strange, and then we could be rest assured, you know, just not worry anymore, or be like, okay, this is weird or strange, we need to either start doing some research, or we need to take this particular animal to the vet. So there's a lot of different things, but the videos, definitely check the channel if you haven't seen them already. The videos on woofing will give you a good idea of what I did. Each woofing experience is different, so if you're really interested in woofing or working on a ranch or a farm or homestead or anything of that nature, definitely check the other videos that are on YouTube just to get an idea of what it's like at my location as well as different locations. What are some new skills that I learned by volunteering? So prior to woofing, oh, I see we have someone new here. Kiana's in here. Welcome. Welcome to the live. I don't know how long it's been. I don't know if you've been in here for a while, but hopefully you're still here. Welcome. So with woofing, prior to woofing, I had never mowed the lawn before. Coming from Philly and coming from the city, I grew up in the city, so when I was a kid, you know, there wasn't really grass. I feel like one of the homes that we had when I was young, there may have been a manual mower where it had the little clippies, like the little whirly rolls, that clippy. I don't know if that was ours or somebody else, but I remember seeing that as a kid. I just don't remember ever doing it, so it might not have been mine. It might have been a neighbor's. And then going from the city to moving out to the suburbs, for me, that was a big deal because now I'm out in the area where people have front and backyards, and that was a big thing to me. And I remember having friends who had lawnmowers, once again a big thing to me, and then even having some friends who had lawnmowers that they got to drive on, once again a big thing to me. But I never needed it based off where we stayed when I was with my mom. And then once I actually purchased my own home, I lived in the desert. There was no grass, nor was I going to grow grass. There was, once again, no need for a lawnmower. So when I got to the ranch, and now I'm on 50 acres, pastures on pastures, there was a point in which I needed to be trained on how to mow the lawn. So I got to mow the lawn using the little driver, and that was a big thing for me. That was so exciting. And at the time, and then also for the kennels, we also needed a push mower. So an electric push mower was also something that I was learning how to use that I had never used before. Now, the one thing that I avoided at all costs was actually using the, what is it called? Weed whacker. The weed whacker. I was worried. I was scared when it came to using the weed whacker, so I used to avoid that like the plague. But since I've been here in Mississippi, guess who has used the weed whacker? I did. Like, I still don't like it. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. I don't know if I'm not a fan because I feel like there's a technique that I just haven't figured out yet. Of course, I've gone to YouTube University and I use that to figure out like at least how to turn it on, use it, and things like that. But I don't like the weed whacker so much. But I did like mowing the lawn on a push mower, a driving mower. That was pretty fun for me. What they call like a zero turn. I think they're called zero turn mowers. That was fun. And then also a push mower. Great experience. So believe it or not, that was an exciting experience for me. Giselle, I see you. Welcome. So that was one thing that I learned. I had never administered medication to a goat before. Also something that I learned. Obviously picking up snakes. I don't know if it's necessarily a skill just yet. I won't necessarily call it a skill, but having someone talk me through the process of picking up a snake, new experience. What else? Technically, I learned how to harvest mayhaws, kind of, but not really. However, our mayhaws were a little different because not a lot of people have mayhaw trees that are surrounded in water, like a seasonal lake. But using the basically like the pool strainer in order to get mayhaw berries that have fallen into the water out. Now I didn't learn how to make the jams. I didn't. They were like, "Were you interested?" No, I'm not. I'm not interested in doing anything in the kitchen. Let's just leave that alone. So I didn't do that. I did learn how to make cotton balls, like dryer balls. Dryer balls. So we would use the wool, not cotton. I'm gonna say cotton, but wool dryer balls. I learned how to do that. I wish I would have actually tried that a lot sooner. That was one of those things that I also was avoiding. And then once I did it, I was like, this is actually pretty fun. Making the dryer balls isn't as fun as trying to decorate them. That was more or less the part that I liked the most, trying to decorate them, because how you get it set up versus once it actually goes through the dryer and the wash and seeing what the design looks like once it's set, that was fun for me. I wish, once again, that I had done more, because I wanted to really start to experiment with how designs could come out. So that's something that I would have learned I'll next time I'll definitely not hold off. So those are some of the skills that I learned while volunteering. Let me just hop up in the chat, make sure we're all good. Okay. Alright, so some more questions about the good old-fashioned ranch. So what was my favorite ranch chore, and which one did I dread? So my favorite ranch chore was definitely feeding the babies. Feeding the ranch babies, and because that just gave me time to like watch them. You know, granted, a lot of times they were just like feed me and go, and it wasn't like I was hand feeding them. But just to be in the pastures with them and just there would be times where I would just watch for a little bit before I would go in. I would watch to see how they were acting when they knew I was coming with the food, to see some of them come running, to see the sheeps literally curse me out when they're like, "Hurry up, lady." That was just fun to actually just watch and observe their behavior. Then they would eat and then go about their business and then do their regular lifey stuff, their animal lifey stuff, and just watching them. That was really fun. And of course, you know, same thing with the kennels, like hanging out with the kennels, feeding the fur babies. And then what was really fun was just letting them out and just seeing them just be excited to go from one location to the next. Like sometimes just watching them go from outside to inside was fun to watch, and then inside to outside, because fur babies, when they're just having an exciting moment or they're just being curious, is just so cute and adorable to me. So those are some of my favorite ranch chores. As far as what did I dread? Now on the ranch, the one that I actually dreaded originally, because originally my least favorite chore was cleaning the chicken coops. And mind you, there's like a lot of chickens. There's a lot of chickens, and you know, I had to go out there with a shovel and a scraper. And I don't know if it was based off just how we were setting up the coops, because they were really kind of nonchalant about stuff. They were like, we need somebody to clean the coops, but it wasn't like a hardcore tutorial or lessons on how they wanted it done. So when I did it, I just did it based off what my brain said to do. And you know, when I explained to them, they were like, okay, that's fine. But there may have been other ways to do it that may have made life a little bit easier or made the cleanup process easier. But when it came to being in that chicken coop, it was just so much poop. So that was one of my least favorites originally. But then, mind you, with the ranch, this is one thing that got to me near the later months. So when I first got there, I knew that their main thing on the ranch was breeding goats. Now, when I hear the word breeder, do know I immediately have like not a positive feeling. I'm not a fan of breeders when it comes to cats and dogs. I do understand that some people are like, well, I want a particular animal and I want a particular breed. I am not judging it. Yes, I'm not, like, sometimes I be judging. I be a little judgy, but then at the same time, I'm not judgy because I understand. And I say that because I always used to kid about Fatty being so big. I'm like, he's a Maine Coon. Like, he's a Maine Coon mix. But is he really? I don't know. However, a part of me does want an actual Maine Coon cat because they're so big and they're like baby dogs. So with that, like, it's running into a shelter and seeing a Maine Coon. It's probably slim to no unless you go to like a particular rescue. Then yeah, you have your chances. So I understand the need for breeders, but then my mind doesn't. My mind also goes to all the breeders that I've met in my life. Like, everybody has a cousin that so-called breeds pits, or everybody has a cousin or a family member or a friend or somebody close by that sells animals, and then you're just like, not every time it's like either the best or your favoriteest person, or it's not done in a way that you feel like it's the best for the animal. So okay, so I have that, so I have that bias. So when I first got to the ranch, a part of me was like, do I want to work somewhere where they breed goats? But then I started asking questions like, okay, how do you know these goats aren't going to a house where they're just going to get slaughtered? And then it was explaining like, well, this is a special breed, they're paying a price, the price tag generally means they're not going to eat this animal. And that was my biggest thing at the time. Like, I was like, I don't want these animals, I don't want to just be having, these female goats have babies just so their babies can go straight to the slaughterhouse. Like, that didn't sit well with me. So then once it was explained, like, no, that's not the case, then I felt better. And then I also took in consideration, like, well, where else are you going to get ranch animals? Like, I've never seen a goat at the pound. So I don't know how else they would get it. They probably just have to go to a breeder. So I felt okay with that. And then also, when I got to the ranch, there were no babies. We had younger goats, but there weren't like babies. So in my head, I'm like, okay, these, when they're gonna breed these goats, they're not gonna be eaten, and then they're gonna be on the ranch for I'm looking at some of these goats that were, I don't know, I don't really know, I can't tell their ages, but I'm thinking like, oh, that goat's probably 6 months old. So that's what I was thinking at the time. So I'm thinking like, they have time to be with their mom for a while, they have time to be with their siblings for a while before they go on to their next home. And then and the whole time I was there, the girls were pregnant, but then we're getting to the point where they're about to start having babies. And then once it's time for them to start delivering babies, that's when I started to realize what worked for me and what didn't work for me. Because there were some of the girls that wound up dying because, like, one of them, for example, died because she gave birth to a stillborn. Okay. Now it's starting. Now I'm like, okay, this is the first one that hit me. I'm like, I don't like that. And then the baby was born stillborn, and then her death took a while. It took her a few days before she transitioned, and to see her slowly dying, okay, y'all, I could. Okay. Then we had another one, didn't even give birth. We just came out one day, she was gone. Her and her baby were gone. And I'm just like, okay. Then we had some who gave birth, and then after giving birth, they slowly got sick. This is Lisa that I'm talking about. I mentioned Lisa in one of the videos where we were trying to, we took her to the vet and we were giving her meds, but then in the end, we had to put her down. And the ranch I was at, they were more of a hands-off approach. So they didn't intervene very much in this, and that's, and this is fine. This is totally fine, because this is the type of things that were happening in nature. But for me, based off who I am, I'm not a hands-off type of person. I am a take them to the vet every 3 days if they don't improve type of person. But when it comes to ranch life and farm animals, that's not necessarily the life or the way that these animals are. Well, I can't speak for all ranchers or farmers, but statements have been made. Statements were made at the vet, and statements were made while I was on a ranch that makes me believe that when it comes to ranch animals, in farm animals, you don't necessarily treat them the same way you treat your pets. You know, you don't go to the doctor every time they're sick. You don't go to the vet every time they're sick. You don't panic every time they're sick. You have to accept that when it comes to animals, they're going to pass, and you just have to be prepared for that. And me, if any of my fur babies were to get sick, y'all know I'm gonna put the money out in order to try to save them, you know. But that's not always the case when it comes to the ranch. Sometimes it's like we'll put $500 into trying to get them feeling better, but we're not gonna go above that, or, you know, and $500 may still be a lot. So that was something that kind of got to me, having these girls die, knowing that, you know, they were bred and their baby was going to be sold. That got to me. And then it it got even worse for me when it was time for those babies to actually be sold off. I was not ready. So I'm thinking that they're gonna be on the ranch for like 6 months, and then they're gonna be to the point where they're basically like teenagers, where they're not dealing with their mom, they're okay, whatever. No, we actually have to wean them off. We actually have to separate them from their moms, so they start, you know. Granted, the moms are starting to wean them off of the milk, off the breastfeeding. That was already starting to happen, but we actually had to start separating them. And then just having the kids, the baby goats, kind of crying for their moms and their moms crying for their babies, that did not go over well for me either. And then once we started actually selling them to people, there was one instance where I'm part of the team that's grabbing the babies. You know, I'm holding one of the kids and I'm taking this kid to the truck, putting it in the truck in their new kennel where they're going to go to their new forever home. And then the mom was literally chasing after me, crying. I mean, I don't want to use the word crying, but definitely making goat sounds, okay? And that was kind of the moment when I was like, I can't do this. I don't like this part. I don't like this part at all. So, I'm learning that I really love the animals, and I love being on the ranch, and I don't fault them for what they do. There's nothing like granted, I say I judge, but then at the same time I totally understand. But I learned that when it comes to a lot of the commercial aspects of this life, that doesn't necessarily work for me. I thought, for example, I'd be able to work at a place where they raise cattle and then slaughter the cattle to sell. Now that I had that moment where I watched, like, I saw myself getting attached to some of these animals, and then knowing that now it's time for them to go transition over. I don't think I can. Like, I don't think I will be able to do a wolfing experience or a volunteer work camping experience where it's like I know that these animals are going to be slaughtered at some point, because I know I'm going to get attached. And the same with the goats. It's just like I don't think I can be there when I watch the whole process of the mama goat's bellies getting bigger and bigger, and then getting super excited that these kids are now going to be delivered and the babies are born, and then me wanting to get to see what their personality is like, knowing that at some point I now have to separate them from their mom and then send them elsewhere. That's not for me. That's not for me. So it does make life a little difficult, because I really love the ranch that I was at and I want to go back to the ranch, but then at that I know that there's going to be a point where I would have to deal with that again, and that's where I'm kind of juggling this like, I would have to time it perfectly where it's like I'm there, but as soon as it's time to start separating the babies, I would have to end my time, because I don't think that's going to work for me. I think I need to find more places where I think I may need to be looking for, not necessarily businesses, but maybe homesteads where the animals that are on the property are considered family. They're pets. I think that may be something that I need to be looking at moving forward, or rescues slash sanctuaries where I, you know, if there is a time where the animals are going to leave the property, knowing that they're leaving and going to another, going to a forever home, or if they are, or it's an organization where it's like, well, if any of them have like a relationship, we don't separate them. You know, like I'm learning myself, and I'm learning what I can handle, and that's one thing that I'm gonna have to take in consideration the next time. Hold on, y'all. This phone talking about it's gonna die on me. Let me get things charged up. You know what? I think I can charge it. Okay, hold on. Let me. Okay. All right. Okay, so there we go. There we go. So we got some more people in the chat. Let me talk to you now. Let me check. Let's see. Let's see. We got Ursula TV is here. Welcome. She Devil Adventures. Welcome. Giselle, with all the info you have learned, do you do the farms? Would you ever want a small homestead of your own? Would I ever want? Yes, no. So right now I'm in a place where I don't really want to own anything. So I like the idea of someone else having a homestead and me working it. I don't want to deal with the administrative parts. I don't want to deal with the bills. I don't want to deal with that part of the homestead, but I still want to be part of it. So that's where the yes and no comes from. I don't want to own it, but I want to continue to be in situations where somebody else has it and I get to reap the benefits, essentially. That's what I think is my thing. At this point in my life, I still don't want to own anything. Like granted, I own an RV and I own my car, but outside of that, dealing with owning a house, owning land, there's just like so many layers to it, and I'm not interested in that at this point in my life. Hello, Leslie. I see you are in here. Ursula, I'm sorry, but glad you see the experience and information you share with us. Yeah, so once again, I'm still very happy that I got to experience that, because although in the end I was just like, oh, I don't like this part, I needed to experience that to realize that I didn't like that part. So absolutely love the ranch, love the host family, love the experience. I wouldn't change any of the things that I experienced. I wouldn't change any of that, because I needed to experience it to know what works for me, what doesn't work for me. So but with, another good thing is now the next time I pick a location, I can take in consideration, like, okay, what worked for you, what didn't, what aligns with what, who you are, how I get attached. If I know and I get attached, there's certain experiences that I just like, this is just not going to work for you. Don't pick this one. Pick something else. So that was a lesson that I needed to learn, and I'm happy I got to learn it. And of course, I'm also happy I got to experience that, because I get to, hype up Wolf and tell people, like, hey, consider it, or at least consider, work exchange, work camping. That world is a cool, it's a cool world. It's just know that, because like when the reason I'm trying to figure out how to say this, like there's when I first started work camping, my first thought is like working at a campground, but that's not the only thing that you can do and be considered a work camper. So there's so many different ways that you can live on a property, not have to pay rent, work on the property, and get to experience a different lifestyle. So that was my least favorite. Back to that. Let's see, what was the most unexpected or funny thing that's happened while volunteering? I guess the most unexpected thing, of course, was running into that snake, and then me being like, I'm gonna try to do better when I'm around snakes. Unexpected was also when it was mating season and seeing like 3 snakes all at once. Like seeing one snake was just like, okay, all right, okay. And then seeing a snake in water, like for some reason the idea of a snake swimming does not settle well with my spirit. And then when we just keep laying it up to see 3 snakes all together, goodness gracious. But once again, it's something I need to experience so I can figure out my comfort level and then to face my fears. A funny thing that I experienced, if we're trying to do both unexpected and funny, I can't really think of anything that stands out that's specifically funny, but it was always just funny moments that would occur when I would just watch the animals interacting with each other. There'd be times I just would watch the goats play with each other. There was one moment, I think I did a short on this, where a lot of the baby goats, they were taking after their mother, by the way, because the mothers would do this as well, but the baby goats took it up a notch, where they would jump into where the food was. And when we had Bad Boy, the potbelly pig, with the goats, the does, and the kids, he would knock the kids right on out. He would be, even though that's not where he ate, like he ate off the ground, but for some reason I remember one time him knocking them out. And then some of the moms would do the same thing. You know, somebody asked when Lisa got sick and she wound up passing, did any of the other female goats essentially adopt her kids? Those mamas was so mean to the other kids. They was, I know for people who work at a zoo, if all animals are like what I watch the mamas, the does are, I can understand how stressful it could be to possibly get one of these mothers to adopt another kid, because these moms had me dying. They used to just knock the little kids. They did not care. There was no etiquette whatsoever. They would be headbutting the little kids, knocking them over. If they was in the way, get out the way. They didn't care. But them kids learned. They was ducking and dodging the other mamas. So that was fun to watch because nobody got hurt. That was kind of funny. Let's see. Would you recommend woofing to someone who has never worked on a farm or ranch before? Absolutely. Y'all already know I would. In fact, I am trying to push it. Not only am I trying to push woof, and for my non-black folk and my non-queer folk, I love you, but I want to see more black hosts. I want to see more queer hosts in the network, because it's not a lot. Even, you know, a person of color, just a person of color. You know, I would like to see more people of color who have land, who are homesteading, be a part of WOOF, because in the ideal world, everybody experiences the same, but this is the ideal world. But in real life, the experiences are going to be different, and it would be interesting to see how those experiences are different. For example, I was in Florida, right? And my host family, they're white. But they were, you know, they're not conservative thinkers, okay? But, they're not conservative thinkers, but, you know, but they would tell me stories of people who didn't know how they thought. They didn't know that they didn't know they were Democrats, right? So people would say stuff to them, so they would get to experience a part of Florida that me as a black person, I probably wouldn't experience. Like people will come up to them and say some pretty fucked up racist stuff, thinking that they think the same way, and that wasn't the case. So, you know, they were able to experience that and, you know, maybe just shake it off or kind of blend in and camouflage with the rest of the, you know, racist bigots. But, you know, they didn't necessarily think that way. Obviously, you know, if that ranch was owned by black people, it's like, well, how would your experience have differed? You know, that's something that I want to get a taste of. Same with someone who's like obviously queer. Like, granted, there's some people who are queer you don't know they're queer, but I kind of want to see what it's like if, you know, you are ranch farmer, homesteader, and you stand out. You don't look like everybody else. What's your experience like? Now, there are some people on WOOF who will put in their profile, or not necessarily put in their profile, but WOOF, you can filter. So let's say you want to look for somebody that's queer, you want to look for a farm that's woman owned, you want to look for a place that's operated by a person of color. You can filter that. But what I realized is it's either some people are selecting certain filters even though it doesn't apply to them. In one profile they did explain, like, I'm not queer, but I'm putting that I'm you know, it says that I'm queer just so you know this is a safe space. And then I feel like there's a possibility that some people also did that with the person of color filter. Now, granted, a person of color doesn't necessarily always look like a person of color, so some people may have been a person of color but they were white passing. But there were certain profiles that I would try to filter out, trying to find a particular, you know, identity, And then when I looked at the person, I was like, it doesn't fit what I just selected, and I would be really confused. So I would hope that in due time, you know, I'm hoping that more people that stand out of the crowd will start joining this network, so some people who want to see if there's a difference in the experience get to see that, and then also just to be able to sit and talk with somebody that looks and thinks like them. So that's one thing. Which animal sounded like kids crying? That my mama's here. You may be referring to guinea fowls. So peacocks and peahens. A lot of times, if they were in the background, they sounded like a combination of a cat, a combination of a woman crying, and a kid crying. So if you heard weird sounds in the background, that may have been the guinea fowls. Mainly the peacocks, because the peacocks are a lot louder than the peahens. But I'm thinking that may have been what you were hearing if you watched the video and you had that question. Alright, let's see what else we got. Just trying to touch on some other stuff. I have a few more questions that I want to touch on, and then of course I am checking the chat, so if y'all have any questions, go ahead and shoot them out. So I want to say that pretty much sums up the woofing experience. So we talked about like RV life, talked about woofing and ranch life, and then let's talk about I've gotten questions before. Well, let's talk about being just a general nomad, just traveling. So some people want to know, how do I decide where I want to go next? It depends. Obviously, like for example, this where I am right now, coastal Mississippi, this wasn't part of the plan at all. I was supposed to be going out to the desert, and the reason that I was deciding on the desert was because I needed to get somewhere where it's not raining anymore so I can deal with my roof. So some of the decisions that I make is just based off like what repairs do I have that I want to do on the RV, or when it comes to weather, I don't mess around when it comes to the cold, so I pick locations that I know that will avoid the cold. Recently I just left Florida. The original plan was to leave Florida before the active hurricane seasons, and then all I did was go to somewhere else with active hurricane season. I know y'all, sometimes my brain will be braining. So you know, weather's a thing that I take in consideration. Repairs that I need to do on the RV is things that I take in consideration. If I'm trying to get to a friend or a family member and be near them, such as my trip to Pennsylvania, I wanted to hang out with my grandma and my mama, so that was why that was decided. Those are like the main reasons I'd say. And then there's also a sprinkle of like, hey, I haven't traveled to this place and people always talk about this place, I want to experience this place, so that also comes into the decision. So a little bit of a combo pack, but each time the decision process is probably going to vary, but those are some things that I take in consideration. Do I plan my travels ahead or go with the flow? I think it's a combo pack. Like I kind of plan ahead, but then I also go with the flow. So because so many people always talk about, well, when it comes to word camping, you should know where you're going because these spots fill up quickly. I think the spots that they're talking about are the ones where they pay you. The paid positions probably fill up quickly. So at this point, I'm still living off of savings and just kind of enjoying life and not worrying about the money. I go more or less based off what I want to experience, and as of now, I haven't run into any issues, any major issues where it's like, oh, that particular place has filled up. But popular places, such as like if everybody wants to go to Yellowstone, that's like the thing that pops up all the time. I want to work camp at Yellowstone Park, you know, or any of these parks. Okay, I can understand those probably filling up. So some people are applying and reaching out to people in advance. Gotta hydrate. So I have done some where I've reached out with probably just like the plan to leave in like a month or two, and then maybe because of availability, maybe it was pushed back. So you know, it's like, okay, well, I can either stay where I am longer or maybe just find a midway point, which was kind of how the plan for Missouri came into play. I was just like, okay, originally I needed to be in Arizona by October, but I wanted to leave the ranch before October because that's when it gets active. So then I was like, well, let me just find a midway point. Plus, I wanted to get I wanted to break down the trip. Like, I didn't want to have to drive essentially cross country again. I was just like, hey, let me kind of get to a midway point, take a month, chill, and then get back on the road again. Um, and then I also do have some plans where it seems like I planned in advance, but that's not what happened. For example, I have my plan to go out to the desert in the spring. So, Ursula kind of answered your question. What's your next adventure? I do have a work camping opportunity in the desert. It's not Nevada though, but it's the desert. I don't want to give too much away because I like keeping secrets. But when I applied to this position, it was actually to fill a spot much sooner. However, what wound up happening is this particular location, they were looking for a particular skill set. So I saw them in like a Facebook group and I was like, ooh, this looks really fun. I want to do this. And one reason that I came across their location is that I was looking for like the desert. So I was typing in Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada. Like I was typing in those areas, and that's one way that it popped up. And then also another thing that I was searching for was like certain activities or certain things that I would need to do, certain chores that I would need to do. And once again, so I was like, okay, this is popping up. Then I got really excited about the next gig. And when I reached out the first time, the spots had already been filled. There was no openings. So I was like, bummer, boo-hoo. Then they popped up again. So the first time I think I found like an old post, you know, with Facebook, it'll be a lot of people will post stuff on there and then they don't delete the post. So it was probably like something that was posted like a year, 2 years ago. Learned about that, the fact that they offer work camping at this location, reached out to them just to see if they had any spots. They didn't. Then they did pop up. So with work camping, people cancel. So sometimes they don't need somebody, then the next minute they do. And I got super excited. However, they were looking for a particular skill set, which I did not fit. But because I'm so amazing, they were like, but we still want you to come. So even though this spot for, let's say it was October, even though we have a spot that we need to fill for October, that's not available, we will have a spot based off our current schedule in the spring. Would you like to come in the spring? I said, yep, sign me up. So that's why I have a plan to go to the desert for the spring. That's how that kind of fell into play. So it looks like I planned ahead, but no, it's just kind of how things worked out. So I think I would say, to answer that question, I'm more of a go with the flow person with a little sprinkle of planning ahead. Well, nomadic life. How do I handle healthcare, mail, and other logistics while being nomadic? Well, I can answer the mail one. That's easy. I have a mail service that I set up in mail forwarding service that I set up when I was still in Pahrump, and they get on my mail and then they send it out to me. Healthcare, I try not to fall because I still don't really have health care. Now with Wolf though, they do have a travel insurance that comes with it that you can purchase. I can't remember. It's like some of it, like you're somewhat insured just by signing up, but then you can knock it up a level. It's basically just travel insurance, but it has a health component to it. Now, granted, this is not preventative health insurance. It's more or less like if I'm at the emergency room, if I require emergency care, at least I'm not paying the full price. I have a bit of a cushion. So that's what I'm kind of working with right now. I still have not really done much when it comes to figuring out healthcare, because the things that I have found were mainly for digital nomads, people who are still working, which I'm not, and they somehow buy into a healthcare package. So healthcare I still haven't figured out, y'all. Like I said, I just hope to goodness I don't fall. But I am currently manifesting a relationship with someone who's rich, and someone who's rich who doesn't really have anybody to share that money with. So I'm manifesting this relationship where they're just like, I'm just gonna adopt you even though you're a grown-ass woman, and I'm gonna put you in my trust. So I'll be fine once this manifestation comes to life. So that's what's happening with that. Let's see. As a vet, you can use the VA healthcare system. I'm not a vet, so I never did military. Just so you know, if the word vet ever comes out of my mouth, I'm referring to veterinarian, not a veteran. So I don't know. So I doubt I can use the VA health system. I'm pretty sure they're gonna turn me away. What if? Let's see. Oh, I've gotten this question a few times. Okay, have you ever felt unsafe while traveling? And if you did, how did you handle it? So when it comes to traveling, and this is something that I've talked about, I haven't really talked about. The one time I felt unsafe was actually the one time that me and CK were driving from Nevada to PA, and then we got pulled over twice in Arkansas. That moment was the time that I felt the one time I felt unsafe. Because we were in Arkansas, okay, and we just, you know, to me it felt like back to back. It was like I got pulled over, had a conversation with a cop. Of course, they checked to make sure I wasn't sketchy. Showed they saw nothing when they ran my record. There was no reason they couldn't put anything on me. Let me go. As soon as I pull out, I get pulled over again. And then the reason I got pulled over is because I was pulled over. Like, it was a weird situation. So that so far has been the time I felt unsafe. Luckily CK was there, and then how I handled it, I just tried to stay cordial, just be a happy black, you know, the best I could be. I knew that I did nothing wrong. I had nothing illegal in the RV, so it's like, you know, unless you throw some drugs in this RV, there's nothing that you can do, because I didn't do anything wrong as far as I was concerned. Granted, the thing I did wrong was driving the white line, but I don't think much would have came out of that, out of than like a fine or a slap on the wrist. What I would say though, just traveling isn't what makes me unsafe. Just being solo makes me unsafe, but that was the case if I was living by myself in the house. Like when I was in a permanent home, stationary home, the level of how safe I felt then is the same when it comes to how I feel in this RV. It hasn't really changed. You know, I'm a female, and I'm by myself most of the time. So all I can do is always stay aware. When I'm traveling somewhere, I make sure I always have the means to get out of that situation if I need to. You know, I'm never in a situation where it's like, okay, I spent all my money to get to this location. If something goes wrong, I'm stuck here. Like, no, we're not doing that. There's a entrance plan and an exit plan at all times. There's also a plan B. And for most cases, it may be like, hey, if this work camping situation, this wolf camping doesn't work out, I know where the nearest RV parks are. I know how much they cost, and I make sure I have that money. So those are the things that I do to, you know, to mitigate the level of discomfort that I have. And then when I find myself feeling unsafe, oh, you know what? There was a time when I felt super unsafe when that dog attacked me and my fur babies. That was also a moment when I realized what I'm prepared for, what I'm not prepared for. And that's one thing that happens from time to time. It's like, okay, if I feel unsafe, I have to ask myself, why do you feel unsafe? And then the goal is, once I've sat myself down and figured out what it is that I feel unsafe, it's like I feel vulnerable because of this, that, and the third. Now I need to address this, that, and the third. So if it's like I feel unsafe because if a dog attacks me, I don't know what to do. What do we start doing? We start watching YouTube videos on how to protect yourself when you're attacked by a dog. Or if a dog is attacking one of my fur babies, what do I do? You know, that is the things that I generally do. I have a sit down with myself, try to be as self-aware as possible, be honest with myself, and then attack that area of like, this is where I feel I am not adequate. That's what I do with that. So far it's been working. And then another thing that I do to feel safe is with these videos, I don't post them real time. I give you information about my location, but not everything. And then luckily most times I'm never 100% alone. You know, like I'm in this RV by myself, but I'm at a friend of a friend's house. Now, granted, a friend of a friend, you know, people still have had bad experiences with friends, families, and friends of friends. Yes, that unfortunately does happen. But I look after being here for some time and knowing like a few people that are connected to this individual, I feel comfortable, and I don't feel like I'm completely alone. Plus, I got the fur babies. If anything goes wrong, I always got them to alert me of issues, and then, you know, we just be in here fighting for our life in this RV if necessary. If worst case scenario, everybody gonna have to die. Like, that's just what's gonna happen. Let's see. Let's see, do we have any questions? Keep in mind, I've done this live for 2 years now. Does anybody have any questions? Right now, I'm just trying to go through questions that I've been asked, whether in comments, on the road, or just through conversations that I've had with friends, families, or people interested in this lifetime. I'm sorry, in this lifestyle. Anything, and I'm seeing like I'm also in the chat because I see that it's going in and out. So hopefully everybody's quiet. Last time it got quiet in here is because I got booted. Am I still in the chat? Let me see. Testing. I see myself saying testing. Y'all gotta let me know if I'm still actually recording. Okay, fantastic. Grandma says yes. Ursula says yes. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm still actually recording, which is fantastic. Well, do you have any questions for me? Because I've touched on a few things. Want to make sure if you have some specific questions that I answer those. Because if not, I got a few more questions before we end the chat. Before we end the live stream. Alright, so we touched a little bit on solo travel, and then okay, some other random things that I've been asked as a nomad. So what's one luxury that I refuse to give up, even living nomadically? Right now, one of the things that's hard for me to give up is internet. I still want to stay connected, even though I don't want to be online all the time. Like, when I say the internet, that doesn't mean I need to be on social media nonstop, but I do need to be on social media-ish, at least YouTube, because I want to be a content creator, and ideally we can get this channel to a place where I continue to live minimalistically, and then the bills that I do have I can cover through content creation. So internet is a big deal, and then also, you know, I do like my streaming channels. Not all of them are paid for. Okay, you know, when I say streaming, that doesn't mean I'm putting out dollars upon dollars on apps and whatnot. But you know, just being able to end the night with a sci-fi movie is something that I have not given up just yet. Now, at some point, I need to be doing more reading as opposed to sitting in front of the boob tube, as they like to call it. But at this point, I'm still on that, like, let me just go with the visuals. So internet is my luxury that I'm just gonna hold on to for a little bit longer. What's my easy go-to meal? Oh, in the RV. So y'all know I don't really like cooking, and I went grocery shopping, right? And at the time, because I'm trying to do better with my food, right? I want to do more produce, fruits and vegetables and things of that nature. So I've been looking at not necessarily being vegan, but I've been looking at, you know, meals where it is easy cook meals, or like raw vegan meals. So I've been trying to incorporate some of those options. But then, you know, I still like my little meats. And when I went to the grocery store the other day, I was like, I'm gonna get me some chicken breast. Then I saw the price of the chicken breast, and I said, well, actually, I'm gonna not get chicken breast. But then I saw the price of chicken liver, so I grabbed that. And with the plan of being able to eat it myself, and then also to share it with the fur babies. So for a good while, chicken liver and rice was my go-to meal. Now, the only reason why I'm saying it as in past tense is because I ran out of chicken liver and I haven't gone grocery shopping. But that right now is really hitting. It's doing it for me. It's doing it for me. And then I also, for the first time, had a smoothie with banana and peanut butter. So I've heard a lot of people talking about banana smoothies with peanut butter. I did that, and I not only it was banana, celery, and peanut butter, and I was like, I like this. So that's been my go-to smoothie for like the past couple days, and then my go-to like dinner. But I do need to go shopping again because all that is pretty much done. Now I'm down to like rice. I think we got rice and shrimp. I think that's gonna be my go-to for the next couple days until I get back, until I get this car fixed, so I can go grocery shopping, or I just have them deliver it, because sometimes you're just gonna have to pay that delivery fee and tip them. Go-to meal, so it's a little different probably than what most people expected, but you know, I like weird stuff anyway. Oh, and then this is going to be the question that we're going to end with, okay? So if I could take my RV anywhere in the world, where would it be? I want to go to the Caribbean so bad. And I'm not seeing a lot of people who like, I live on one of the Caribbean islands in my RV full time. I'm not seeing a lot of videos on that. I think it may happen. It may be a thing somewhere, but that's really where I want to go. I'd love to just go from Caribbean island to Caribbean island. Somehow, I guess we would just have to ferry the RV from spot to spot. I have to figure out the logistics. And sadly, I'm learning that a lot of the places that are warm and have beaches that I want to go don't have the best roads. So I don't. That's probably another reason why I'm like, maybe I should just downsize to a van. Because I've been watching videos of people just driving around certain countries that are very beachy, and you know, taking notice of the roads and taking notice how big the vehicles are on most of these roads. And I'm like, I feel like I can at least get away with a van in more places than I can with the RV. So yes, that's where I'd like to do next. That's where I'd like to do next. All right. So, let's see. Alright, so I think we still got Ursula in the chat with us and Van Miles. Thanks for hanging out with me. Now, there is one thing that I just want to leave, I want people to take this thought and just sit with it for a while. So, one of the things that got me into this lifestyle, ready to make that move, was a thought that I had really dove myself into. Like I made it a reality in my head. I was like, this is real. Now act accordingly. So for those of you, I want you to think of whatever, let's say you're religious, okay? Imagine if whoever God is in your mind, if you had a vision of that individual, or if you're spiritual and you follow signs and you look to the universe for signs, or if you have the ability to communicate with loved ones that have passed and transitioned over. Imagine either God or the universe talking to you, or a loved one, or a doctor. You know, just imagine something that if you hear it from this person, this person, this being, this entity, if you hear it from this, insert whatever there, that you're going to take it as law. I want you to think to yourself, if you had 365 days left to live, would you continue living the life that you're living? Sit down and think about that. Do know that question is what I asked myself, and when I really sat with it, that's when I made a decision to start downsizing. That's when I made a decision to stop working a typical 9 to 5. That's when I made a decision on which relationships I would keep investing in. That's when I made a decision to start doing the things that I always have been thinking about, but I was scared to do. So I want everybody to sit and think about that, because life is not guaranteed. Every day we hear about celebrities who pass, and then we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, I was just thinking about that person. Or we think about loved ones who we hear, and we're just like, I was just talking to that person. Life is not guaranteed. No one is guaranteed to live to their 100, okay? Now, I don't want you to live as if this is your last day on earth, because I feel like a lot of people will be reckless. And, you know, if I was to ask that question, if you only had one day left to live, somebody would say something that just let me know that they want to harm people, or it would be not the life, they would just say or do something reckless. So I want you to imagine that you have 365 days left, okay? On day 366, that's it. You're done. Your time here is gone. Think about that. Now, if there are things that you dread doing every day, I want you to consider finding something else to do. So when you wake up, you're not dreading. Because imagine, you only got 365 days left. If the life that you are living right now is not the life that you will live during that final year, then it's time to start making some changes. Okay? So just sit with that for a while and figure out what you should be doing in your life. Okay? Hey, I see my cousin Shelly's in here. She pass your bedtime. Thanks, Shelly. Thanks for staying. That was so true. I'm assuming something that I said touched you or resonated with you. So everybody just sit with that. I sat with that, and that's why I'm here at this very moment. That's why I've been living the life that I've lived for 2 years, because I told myself 365 days left. That's all you have. What would you change? And then I started changing things. And now it's time for you to ask yourself that same question and figure out if you're going to continue on the path that you're on, or it's time to make some changes, because I'd like to be part of your live stream in a year or 2 years and talk about the things that you've learned since take changes, or maybe staying on the path that you are, whatever it may be for you, whatever it may be. Well, thanks, Shelly, for taking a little nappy and waking up. Remember, worst case scenario, if you missed most of the live, you can always catch it on the replay. We definitely got more videos coming soon. Since we are 2 years into this, I am getting to the point where I think I need to stop considering myself a newbie. So I am considering ways to mature as a RVer as well as a content creator. So I'm trying to figure out how I can go from newbie to advanced beginner and start and you may start seeing me try to experiment and just mature. So hopefully you will enjoy that, and definitely subscribe if you haven't already. If you enjoyed this live stream, definitely like. If you find any value in it, like. If you think that you have friends, family, or loved one who could who's like-minded or may find some value in this, definitely share. Let them know about the channel. Thanks everyone for stopping in. I'm gonna let you get back to your life, and remember that question. Ask yourself, sit with it. You got 365 days left. Would you continue to live life as you're living it now? If not, it's time for a change. All right, thank you everyone. It was good seeing you. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for spending time with me, and I will see you next time.